What's up, YouTube? Hopefully you guys are still remembering me at this point. I know I haven't been too consistent on keeping the content flowing like I should have been, and I apologize for that. It is race season, full swing around here, and that means it's race season for everybody else, so I've been staying very, very busy. But I am going to get back to the content coming out on a regular basis. I know I've been promising that, but we're getting back at it this week. With that, I owe you guys a live Q&A for May, so let's plan on doing that Q&A this coming Thursday, the 15th, I believe it is, at 9 p.m. live on the Loganbuilt channel here. So, let's talk about UCC. You know, the race that I wasn't supposed to be at, that one thing led to another. I went to go testing, made a few wrong turns. Next thing I know, I end up in Indianapolis, pulling into the gates for the ODR Ultimate Callout Challenge. So, super last minute decision on my end. If you guys watched the last video, you know that I said that I wasn't going to go and that I didn't feel like I was ready to go. And I made the decision last minute to go because I was just really bummed out about the idea of missing out on getting to hang out with the fans. Like I said before, this is the one event of the year where I get to see the most amount of people that watch the YouTube channel. I really like interacting with you guys, and I just couldn't stand the idea of missing it. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna go. And I'm really glad that I did, because I did get to meet several of you guys for the first time. I got to meet a couple of you guys that we have met before, and it's really awesome anytime that I get all the feedback from you guys about how much you guys love the channel. It really keeps me energized in getting this content and making more stuff and pumping stuff out there. Not to mention, I got a lot of really great ideas from you guys on topics that you'd like to see me cover on the channel, so we're definitely going to be getting back into that. Of course, I wasn't just going to go to UCC without the truck. The truck was close to ready to go, if you remember in the last video. We had a little steering issue that we needed to correct. When I have a problem with this truck, I can't just park it over in the corner and, you know, I'll get to it, you know, give me a couple weeks off and then I'll get to it. Like, I have to fix it right then and there. So right after that last video, I actually got to work, made some new steering brackets and got those welded to the frame. And now our steering box is good and solid. We don't have any more issues in that department. So really, aside from, you know, just loading everything up and cleaning the truck up, it was ready to go. So we take the truck up to the Ultimate Callout Challenge, and like always, the Ultimate Callout Challenge is never very good to us. There's always something stupid that we have to struggle with. It seems like it's always like the nail in the coffin, or the thorn on the rose to us, but it's one of those places that I don't like to miss out on, and it doesn't matter what. If I'm at the racetrack, I'm gonna have a good time. So usually we do these videos where I show a pass, I talk about it, show the next one, talk about it. We're gonna do this a little bit different. Because all of this was so last minute, I didn't have a good idea of a video schedule, how I was gonna put this stuff out. So really we just have some cell phone footage. And so I'm just gonna play all of the footage that I have. All this stuff is from my man, Goose Geisy. Thanks for getting me some videos there, bro. And I'm just gonna play out these videos here. And then, so that way, you know, the guys that are just here to see the action, that don't really care about my commentary, you guys can check out this next couple of minutes of footage, and then we'll go into talking about exactly what happened during this weekend. start this section of the conversation by talking about the best run. The last run that you saw there was actually the best run, as gross as that sounds to say. It went 653 at 108 miles an hour with a terrible, as you saw, 177 60 foot. We'll circle back to why the 60 foot was so bad here in a minute. But that was a one-speed transmission, essentially. This is kind of funny because afterwards, my guys told me that Ryan Milliken was on the starting line, and as soon as that run was over, he turned around and said, "Was that a one-speed?" And he was right, it was. And we will circle back to that as well. The first video that you saw there, that first pass that I made, that was the most promising looking run of the weekend, except for pretty much I screwed that deal up. I was a little bit, you can't really tell in the video because of the angle that it was, but I was a little bit crooked. I had botched the burnout a little bit on that deal, and I actually had the wheel turn to the right, and so when it launched, it left pretty hard. You seen that it drove left there. It still went a 153 60 foot, and I was out of it at like 0.74. So I really only ran it to about half the 60 foot, and it still went a 153 because you saw it was going hard left towards the wall. And that was because I had the truck crooked, I had the wheels turn. When you have the wheels turn and you come off the button, it's kind of a crapshoot on what it's gonna do. So that was on me, I botched that deal. And then from there, our weekend just continued to suck. Never could get a good handle on the truck. Never could get it to 60 foot again. Made a couple small changes after that first little 60 foot run, whatever you want to call it. Some very minor chassis stuff. I just wanted to tighten the rear extension because it looked like it was falling out pretty quick. It was really smashing the tire down. The front looked like it was extending a little bit more than I wanted, so I tightened the front extension up a little bit. And then, you know, put like a 1/4 pound of air pressure in the rear tire. Just small little changes to just try to, you know, fix what I saw in that video there. We were supposed to get 4 qualifiers on Friday and then 2 qualifiers Saturday before we moved into eliminations. I've been to the UCC enough to know that that's rarely ever happens just because of the oil downs from the UCC trucks. They're all out there trying to put up their best number on Friday, and a lot of carnage happens. So I pretty much knew going in we weren't probably going to get 4. I was hopeful that we were going to get 3, but we ended up only getting 2. So we only got 2 runs on Friday. One in the middle of the day around 3 or 4 o'clock, and then we had a late night one around 10 or so. And then on Saturday, we lost one of our qualifiers as well, just because everything went so long. So we only got 3 qualifiers before eliminations on Saturday. So plenty of time between our first and second run, get the truck cooled down, make the little small changes that I want to make to it. That was also 25 pounds of boost on that one. I thought maybe, maybe it left a little bit hot. Maybe we should turn it down a little bit to around 20 pounds of boost. So that's what we did. And then on the second one that night, we go up there. It's a nighttime session. It's really hot. It was pretty miserable last weekend. It was as hot as 94 degrees during the weekend. Even at night, it was still in the low 80s. So wasn't expecting much of a tune-up difference or mile per hour speed difference between the two. But, figured with how well it left in the first 60 foot, figured something around that same 60 foot is what it should go. It should go something in the low 140s in my mind. So the second run, do the deal, go up there, stage the truck, let go of the button, and it just instantly doesn't feel like it has the pep that it normally has. I believe that it went like a 153 60 foot or 158. It wasn't very good. It definitely didn't have the pep. And then it just felt like the engine really never climbed RPM. It felt like it pulled out of the hole, and then it just kind of hit, like a limiter, and just kind of held RPM out through the duration of the run. I don't remember exactly what the time was on that run, but it was like a 660 or something like that. So pretty disappointing. If you remember, we're shifting the truck off of drive shaft RPM now, not engine RPM like we were before, which is ultimately the better way to do it. But you know, a little bit of learning curve in figuring out where the shift points were. So I get back, I look at the data. I don't quite know why it's so slow through the 60 foot, but there's also a new turbo. This 98, it's a lot bigger turbo. So I thought, okay, well maybe 20 pounds of boost just wasn't quite enough for it. Maybe we do need to bump that back up a little bit. And then on the shifting goes, so my 1-2 shift happens at 1400 drive shaft RPM, and my 2-3 happens at 2800 drive shaft RPM. I'm not using overdrive yet because I'm not going fast enough to need it yet. So 1400 drive shaft RPM doesn't care what engine RPM you're at. It's gonna make that shift regardless if it's 3000 RPM or 6000 RPM. And so it made the 1-2 shift at 4700 RPM. And then the RPM just kind of rolls over right through there and doesn't really accelerate anymore. And then the 2-3, it happens to make that shift right at the same RPM. So basically this thing climbs up from 3,500 RPM off the brake to 4,700, just flatline 4,700 RPM out the back. That's why it sounds so lazy, and that's why it's so slow. So this other transmission venture that I've been alluding to is in some real racing stuff. And I have been learning some things from that I've been correlating over to the 47, 48 stuff. And one of the things that I've learned in that world is if you, what they call shifted on the converter, which basically means that every converter is going to have a different shift drop. So say if you're shifting at, you know, like in the gas world, let's say 8,700 RPM, the converter drops 500 RPM, it's going to drop to 8,200. Well, if you shift the car at 8,200, it won't have hardly any drop at all because you're basically shifting it at the point where you're actually wanting the converter to fall to normally. And so it kind of just runs over the converter. And so that's exactly what I thought was happening here. Is, you know, we were shifting it where I want the shift fall, because I'll usually shift this thing 52, 5300. It'll drop about 700 RPM, put us right about in that range. So pretty much chalk that up as, okay, well, it was slow through the 60 foot, so it didn't climb RPM as quickly as it should have. Because it didn't climb RPM as quickly, it still made that 1-2 shift at 1400 drive shaft RPM, and we just shifted it below where we wanted the converter to fall to, so we kind of ruined the run because of that. So I thought, no big deal, no problem. We'll give it a little bit more boost, a little bit more power on the starting line, and we'll just slightly raise the shift points just a little bit to try to make sure that doesn't happen on the next one. So the next one ends up being the next morning. You know, we find out that we're only getting one that morning, so kind of made one more little change. I upped the first nitrous jet from a 60 to a 70 jet, and that's just on, off the button. So that way, you know, I made sure that it had enough power in it early. So make that run, and pretty much the exact same result. It doesn't leave good. It's something in the 150, 60 foots, and it does the exact same thing. It just climbs up to that 47-ish 100 RPM and just lays over for the duration of the run. So at this point, I'm still, you know, convinced, like, okay, you know, everything it's doing with the RPM is because of the shifting, like I just said. But why is it so slow to the 60 foot? Why can I not make this thing leave? You know, the first run we had, it left maybe too hard, you know, so we tried to slow it down, that didn't help. Now we tried to speed it up, it's still not speeding this thing up. So, eliminations, because we lost that round, I actually thought we were done. I didn't think that we had made the show. I thought you had to go faster than a 640 to make the show, so I was basically, you know, like, well, I guess we're not gonna make it. And then the ladder came out, and I'm on the ladder, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess we gotta get the truck ready to go up there. So, to go up there, I just gave it a little bit more boost on the starting line for E1. I ended up getting a broke by E1. Austin Denny unfortunately tore up a turbo the night before, and when he did, it trashed the valves in the head, so he wasn't able to make the call for E1, and so I basically was able to get a buy run. So all I did change there was just raise that starting line boost a little bit. just trying to figure out why this thing won't 60 foot, trying to hit it a little bit harder. So on that run, that is the last run you saw there. So this is where we circle back into the 1-speed deal. So it left the starting line, like I said, terrible, super horrible, 170, 760 foot, super slow. And then the way that I was shifting the drive shaft, or I'm sorry, shifting the transmission off of drive shaft RPM, is it would send the pulse, the power output at 1400 drive shaft RPM, and it would leave that power output on from 14 to 1500. And then same for the 2.3, 28 to 2850. So basically, you know, you have to send power to the solenoid, and then you have to take power away. Because if you just send power to it and leave power to it, it'll actually hang in second gear with the way the shifters are designed. So the problem with what I had it in those conditions were it wasn't a big enough window. So when it saw 1400 drive shaft RPM on this last run, it sends a power output to the solenoid to move the air shifter. But when it does, it sends the power and takes it away. Basically, it just sends one pulse, pulls it away, and then the shifter tries to move, but it didn't keep the solenoid energized enough to actually make the shift. So the transmission stayed in first gear on that whole run. Well, what it did there, same thing as it did before. Slow through the 60 foot, and my nitrous bottle was low. And because the nitrous bottle was low, it had less nitrous, so that's why the 60 foot slowed down as well. But it slowed to the 60 foot, and then normally once it climbed up to 1400 drive shaft RPM, it'd make the 1-2 shift, and then like I said, shift it on the converter, it just lays over, it can't overcome that. Well, this time, it didn't shift. So now it hits that 4700 engine RPM and starts to climb out. All of a sudden it starts making some power, and it's like, all right, we're going somewhere. Because it's in first, obviously though, you're not gonna make the whole run like that. And it zinged up to about 5950 RPM, almost 6000 RPM before I lifted. And I lifted at like 6.39 and it coasted through to 6.53, which is better, you know, better that we're moving in, I guess, the right direction. But now at this point, I'm really confused because these ratios aren't making sense. There's no way that I should be able to go 108 miles an hour in first gear. It's just mathematically impossible. So I'm pretty lost, but at this point we're racing, right? So I guess we get the win for first round. I really don't know what to do. So I basically changed the condition in the smart wire there to fix the shifting issue, and just said, hey, you know, we'll go up there for a second round of eliminations and see what it does. So we go up there for the second round, and we go to pull into the water box. There's a truck in front of us that unfortunately had a big turbo explosion. I mean, blew the hood off of this thing, like pieces everywhere. So the track took some time cleaning that up. Once the track got that cleaned up, right before they were about to give us the go-ahead, out of nowhere, a rain cloud shows up and starts raining on us. So we have to go back to the pits because it started raining pretty good. As I'm turning around to head back to the pits, I back up, I put it in first, I go to take off, and it just locks up. Like, never experienced this before. I have no idea what's going on. It's been perfectly fine. And it felt like I hit the trans brake button. That was instantly my thought. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I touched the button when I was turning the wheel on accident. So, you know, made sure my hands are off the button, put it in first, let it roll forward, starts moving forward, boom, locks up. So I thought, okay, well, shoot, we just broke something. You know, something driveline related tore up. So we push it back to the pits. It pushes back just fine with, you know, with the engine off and in neutral. So, you know, wasn't really sure what happened there, but I'm thinking something hard part related is broke. So we don't make the call for the second round. Probably a blessing in disguise looking back on it, because we weren't going to do anything different than we did the other runs before. It was just going to do the same thing. So really kind of, you know, like, okay, yeah, we broke something hard part related. That's, you know, that's in my mind. I'm thinking when we get back here, I'm going to have to start pulling this thing apart. We'll start having to check everything and see what's broke in it. I knew it wasn't probably wasn't a ring and pinion gear, because usually when those break, they'll lock up when you're pushing them. So I figured, you know, maybe something in the transmission was broke. So get it back here, get it on stands, and before I start pulling the transmission out of it, I had thought of something, and I had thought, wonder if the trans brake solenoid has a little bit of trash in it, and that's what was causing it to apply. And then I started thinking about the ratios, and I said, I wonder if the overdrive solenoid has a little bit of trash in it, and it was causing it to be stuck in overdrive, which would basically multiply your first gear by overdrive. And so in my particular setup, that would give me like a 189 first gear. So I pull the pan down, and I pull the solenoids down, and sure enough, that is exactly what I found. So this is an overdrive and lockup solenoid. If you have a 47RE, this is exactly what you have. And if you can see there, there's this little orifice screen on the overdrive and on the lockup solenoid. And this little screen is really easy to get plugged up with really just anything, like a little bit of clutch material, some fiber from the filter. It doesn't take a whole lot, which is why I'm really religious about servicing this stuff to keep this clean. Well, when it happens and this gets plugged up, it traps the oil in here, and it keeps the valve stroked in the valve body, which basically keeps, so like, you know, say if it was the trans brake, it would try to apply the trans brake on its own. As soon as it built up enough pump pressure from idle, as soon as you started giving it a little bit of RPM, it would lock the trans brake up on you. And that's exactly what had happened. The bottom of the transmission pan looked beautiful. It didn't look like anything more than just a normal racing transmission clutch shed. And so then I started to wonder, well, why did this happen? Because this isn't something that I usually run into with the problem. And like I had said before about that other transmission venture that I've been working on, that we're going to talk about here soon, you have to run in those a really high flow filter. If you run any sort of the yellow element filter, I've learned that they'll actually suck the filter up, and you'll lose converter charge pressure, and then you'll lose line pressure. So I was trying a screen type filter instead of the large Dacron like I sell on all my builds, and I've always ran in the past. I tried this really super high flow screen filter to see if I could see any difference in line pressure. Well, there was no difference in line pressure at all. This thing really didn't outflow, at least with my setup, it did not outflow the yellow large Dacron style filter. But what it did do is it didn't filter hardly anything at all. It didn't filter any of the clutch material. Really, the only thing that this stuff was gonna catch was like maybe a piece of silicone or something. And it allowed that material to get past the filter and end up here in the orifice screens. So what happened is the reason that all of a sudden I couldn't 60 foot anymore is because my 239 first gear ratio is now a 189. Which is a tremendous gear ratio difference. And then same reason why the trans brake randomly started locking up on me is because the screen on the trans brake solenoid got plugged up enough to apply. So you can just blow these out with brake clean, and that's exactly what it did. Blew them out with brake clean, made sure it was good, function tested it electrically, put it back together, boom, everything's working. It's not locked up, there's nothing broke, there's nothing wrong with the transmission. Which is great. You know, I'm very happy about that. Easy fix. It's kind of crazy that, you know, you try to help an area, you know, by changing something, and you end up hurting more than you're helping because you're taking away some of the filter element that is helping protect against this electronic stuff. If you have a transmission that's not electronic at all, like these other ones I've been working on, then it's not a big deal. But I have learned that do not use those screen type filters because one, at least on my stuff with the gear and valve body and a good healthy pump, there is no benefit to be had of it, and all it's going to do is risk plugging these up, and you're going to lose a round of racing, you're going to lose a whole track outing, and you're going to lose a lot of possible data, all because of a filter. But like I said, the good thing is it's fixed, it's 100% back together, it's good to go. We know what happened. I'm not gonna sit here and cry over spilled milk. I'm good with it. I was expecting to have to do a lot of work and spend a lot of money. Now I don't have to, so I'm over the moon. So now from here, where we're gonna go is really we need to go test the truck again now. So that way we can, hopefully stars and moon align, everything works out. I feel like we're finally at the point where now we can just start working on our power management, working on our tune-up, and get this thing reliably making laps. I really believe that we're right there. So that's gonna be the next thing that we do. I'm gonna try to go test somewhere local, but if I run out of time, the next thing on my sights is the next ODSS race in Beach Bend at Bowling Green, Kentucky, and that is June 7th and 8th. So that's where we will be with the truck next. There is a testing opportunity with ODSS that Thursday before the race on Friday. So there is a few things that I need to do to the truck that I will bring you guys along with me as we do those. And so if I run out of time to get it 100% ready to go before then I'll plan for testing at Bowling Green on that Thursday. But that's a rundown of exactly how UCC went for us, why it looked so bad. If you were there and you didn't get to see any decent runs, sorry, that's how this stuff goes. The only thing I can say is that one day I'll either make it better or I'll make it worse. I'm either gonna fix this deal and get it running good, or I'm just gonna keep screwing it up worse. But no, we'll stick with it, and we'll be running good here real soon. And I have no doubt about that at all. It's never a waste when you're at the track. We definitely learned some things. Just being in the truck, in the seat time, and getting comfortable around the crowds and around people is always a win. So we definitely made improvements. The time slip might not show it yet, but we learned things, we made improvements, and it's only gonna make us better in the long run. So that's all I got for this one, guys. Just wanted to talk a little bit about UCC, where we're planning on heading next, what we gotta do. And don't forget, this coming Thursday, the 15th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, if you want to get on the channel here and do that live Q&A with me. So that's all I got, guys. Like always, thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking with me. We will keep the content coming from now on, I promise. And like always, we'll see you on the next one.